Michael Chen was standing in the middle of a huge hotel ballroom, feeling completely out of place. His tie felt too tight around his neck, and he kept pulling at it nervously. Around him, hundreds of people were chatting and laughing, all dressed in their best suits and dresses. This was a pharmaceutical conference, one of those big professional events where everyone comes to talk about their latest research and make business connections. Michael was there representing his company's research department, and honestly, he just wanted the evening to be over. He was 42 years old now, not young anymore, but not exactly old either. Just somewhere in that middle zone where life feels settled and predictable. He had a good job in Seattle, a nice apartment with a view of the water, and a routine that suited him just fine. Most days, he felt okay about the choices he had made in life. Most days, he didn't think too much about the roads he didn't take or the people he left behind. But tonight was about to change everything. Michael was standing near the bar, pretending to look interested in a conversation between two researchers, arguing about clinical trial data when he saw her. At first, it was just a glimpse of dark hair moving through the crowd. Then she turned slightly, and his heart literally skipped a beat. He recognized that profile instantly, even after all these years. It was her. It was really her. Rebecca Mitchell looked different now, of course. 15 years will do that to a person. Her hair was shorter, cut in a sleek style that framed her face. She wore a dark navy dress that looked professional and expensive. The kind of outfit that said she'd done well for herself. But it was definitely her. The way she moved, the way she held herself, even the slight tilt of her head when she listened to someone talking. Michael would know her anywhere. His first instinct was to turn around and walk away. Just pretend he hadn't seen her. After 15 years of no contact, what was the point of opening up old wounds? But before he could move, their eyes met across the crowded room. Time seemed to slow down. Rebecca's face showed surprise at first, her eyes widening just a little. Then something else crossed her expression, something Michael couldn't quite read. Was it anger? Sadness? Curiosity? Maybe all three mixed together. She excused herself from the group she was talking with and started walking toward him. Each step felt deliberate, purposeful. Michael's mouth went dry. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts at once. What should he say? Should he apologize? Should he act casual, like their history didn't matter anymore? When Rebecca finally reached him, she stopped just a few feet away, close enough to talk privately, but not too close. There was still distance between them, invisible but very real. "Michael," she said. Her voice sounded the same, with that warm tone he remembered so well. But there was something else underneath it now, something harder. "Rebecca, I didn't know you were going to be here." His own voice came out rougher than he intended. She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile people give when they're being polite, but feeling complicated emotions underneath. "How would you know? We haven't talked in 15 years. The words hung in the air between them. 15 years. It sounded like forever when you said it out loud like that. 15 years of silence, of separate lives, of questions never asked and answers never given. Rebecca looked at him carefully, studying his face like she was trying to match the man in front of her with the younger version she remembered. Michael felt exposed under her gaze, like she could see through all the years and all the changes straight to the person he used to be. "Tell me something, Michael," she said quietly, leaning in slightly so only he could hear over the noise of the party. "Do you still remember that night?" The question hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. His breath caught in his throat. That night, of course he remembered that night. How could anyone forget the night that changed everything? He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out at first. What could he possibly say? Yes, he remembered. He remembered every single detail, every word they'd said to each other, every tear that fell, every moment of pain and confusion and anger. That night had haunted him for years, shaped his decisions, influenced the path his entire life had taken. "I remember," he finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca nodded slowly, like she'd expected that answer. "Good," she said, "because we need to talk about it. We should have talked about it 15 years ago, But we didn't, so maybe now is the time. Michael glanced around the ballroom. People were still laughing and networking, completely unaware of the emotional bomb that had just exploded in his world. Here now, there's a quiet bar downstairs, Rebecca said. Unless you're too busy. There was a challenge in her voice, like she was daring him to walk away again. Michael thought about his responsibilities for the conference. He was supposed to attend a dinner later. He had meetings scheduled for tomorrow. But looking at Rebecca, at the determination in her eyes, he knew none of that mattered. Some things in life you can postpone forever. Other things, if you don't deal with them when the chance comes, you never get another opportunity. The bar sounds good, he said. Rebecca's expression softened just a little. Okay then, let's go talk about that night. The hotel bar was much quieter than the ballroom upstairs. Soft jazz music played in the background, and the lighting was dim and comfortable. Michael and Rebecca found a corner table far from the few other customers scattered around the room. A waiter came by, and they both ordered drinks without really thinking about it. Michael got whiskey, Rebecca ordered wine. Then they sat there, not quite looking at each other, both trying to figure out where to start. Finally, Rebecca broke the silence. So, 15 years, Michael repeated. You look good. Life's been treating you well? She gave him a look that said she saw right through his attempt at small talk. Let's not do that. Let's not pretend we're just old friends catching up. We both know what happened between us, Michael. We both know how it ended. He nodded, feeling a bit relieved actually. Maybe it was better to just be honest. You're right. I'm sorry. I don't really know how to do this. Me neither, Rebecca admitted. Her wine arrived, and she took a long sip before continuing. But I've been carrying this around for 15 years, and I'm tired of it. When I saw you tonight, I realized I needed answers. Or maybe closure. Or maybe I just need to finally say all the things I should have said back then. Michael's whiskey burned going down, but it steadied his nerves a little. Okay, let's talk about it then. Let's talk about that night. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, her eyes distant, like she was looking back through time. Do you remember where we were? What we were doing before everything fell apart? Of course I remember, Michael said. We were at Marino's, that little Italian restaurant on 5th Street, the one with the red checkered tablecloths and the owner who always gave us extra breadsticks. A real smile crossed Rebecca's face for just a moment. You were wearing that blue shirt I liked, and you got in there early to make sure we got our favorite table by the window. It was supposed to be a celebration, Michael said quietly. You just gotten your acceptance letter. Rebecca nodded. Johns Hopkins Medical School. I dreamed about it for so long. 4 years of undergraduate work, countless hours of studying, volunteering at the hospital, all those recommendation letters. And finally, I made it. I was going to become a doctor. Michael remembered her face when she'd opened that letter. The joy, the disbelief, the way she'd actually screamed with happiness. He'd been so proud of her in that moment. You deserved it. You worked harder than anyone I knew, and you were happy for me, Rebecca said. At first, you really were. I could see it in your eyes. But then, over dinner, reality started to sink in for both of us. Michael ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd never broken. Johns Hopkins is in Baltimore, 3,000 miles from Seattle, and you'd already accepted your position, Rebecca said, at Pacific Pharmaceuticals. Your dream job, the one you've been working toward. We talked about the future so many times. Michael said, but we'd always assumed our paths would line up somehow. We thought we'd figure it out together. Rebecca's expression hardened a little. But that night, at dinner, we realized we'd both been making plans separately. We'd both been assuming the other person would adjust, would compromise, would be the one to change their dreams. The conversation at the restaurant that night had started carefully, both of them trying to be supportive while privately panicking. Rebecca had suggested Michael could find work in Baltimore. Surely pharmaceutical companies existed on the East Coast too. Michael had countered that she could find medical schools in the Pacific Northwest. There were good programs in Seattle and Portland, but neither of them really wanted to give up what they'd already secured. Michael's position came with great pay, opportunities for research, and a clear career path. Rebecca's acceptance to Johns Hopkins was the culmination of years of effort, and the school's reputation would open doors for her entire career. We started arguing, Michael said, right there in the restaurant, trying to keep our voices down, but getting more and more upset. You said I was being selfish, Rebecca recalled, her voice tight. You said I was putting my career ahead of us. And you said I was asking you to sacrifice your dreams for mine, Michael replied. You said if I really loved you, I wouldn't even ask you to consider giving up Johns Hopkins. The waiter came by to check on them, but both waved him away. The drinks sat mostly untouched now. This conversation was too important, too intense to be interrupted. We were both hurt, Rebecca said, both scared, both feeling like the other person didn't understand, and then my phone rang. Michael said quietly. The memory of that moment still made his chest tight. My mom calling from the hospital. My dad had collapsed. Massive heart attack. They didn't know if he was going to make it. Rebecca's face softened. I went with you. We drove straight to the hospital. I held your hand in the waiting room while the surgeons worked on him. I know. You were there for me. Michael looked down at his hands. My dad pulled through that night, but barely. The doctors said he'd need months of recovery. Multiple surgeries. Constant monitoring. My mom was falling apart. My sister was only 19, still in college, not ready to handle all of that. And just like that, the decision was made, Rebecca said. You couldn't leave Seattle. Your family needed you here. And you couldn't turn down Johns Hopkins, Michael added. We both knew it. They sat in silence for a moment, both remembering that long night at the hospital. The fear, the uncertainty, the slow realization that their relationship couldn't survive what was coming. Rebecca finished her wine and signaled for another. Michael did the same with his whiskey. They needed something to do with their hands, some way to ground themselves in the present while talking about the past. After that night at the hospital, Rebecca said, everything changed between us. Do you remember? Michael nodded slowly. We tried to make it work. We said we'd do long distance. We'd call every day, visit when we could, make it work somehow. But we were lying to ourselves. Rebecca said, both of us knew it wasn't going to work, but neither of us wanted to be the one to say it out loud. The 3 weeks after that night had been torture. Michael remembered every awkward phone call, every text message that felt forced, every conversation that circled around the real issue without ever addressing it directly. He was angry, though he tried to hide it. Angry at the timing, angry at the situation, angry that life wasn't working out the way they'd planned. You started pulling away first, Rebecca said, and there was pain in her voice even after all these years. You take hours to respond to my messages. Your calls got shorter. You always had some excuse about your dad or work or being tired. I was dealing with a lot, Michael said defensively, then stopped himself. But you're right. I was pulling away. I was angry with you, which wasn't fair. Angry at me. For what? Michael struggled to find the right words. For not understanding what I was going through. My dad almost died, Rebecca. My whole family was falling apart. And you were still talking about Baltimore, about medical school, about your future like none of that mattered. Rebecca's eyes flashed. That's not fair, Michael. I was there at the hospital. I supported you, but I was also terrified of losing everything I'd worked for. Can you understand that? I was 23 years old, and I felt like I had to choose between the man I loved and the career I dreamed about. Since I was a kid, I know, Michael said quietly. I know it wasn't fair to either of us. You made me feel guilty for wanting to go to medical school, Rebecca continued. Every conversation we had, you mentioned your dad, mentioned your family responsibilities, and I feel like a terrible person for still planning to leave. Michael winced. He hadn't realized he'd done that, but looking back now, he could see it. I didn't mean to make you feel guilty. I was just scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of being alone while dealing with everything. But instead of talking about those fears, you just pushed me away, Rebecca said. You made the decision for both of us without actually saying it, and then you sent the letter. Michael said. Rebecca looked down at her hands. Yes, I sent the letter, Michael remembered the day that letter arrived. He'd known what it was the moment he saw the handwriting on the envelope. He'd actually sat in his car for 20 minutes before opening it, knowing that once he read whatever was inside, there would be no going back. "You wrote that you loved me," Michael said. "That you'd always love me, but that we were hurting each other by trying to hold on." "I meant every word," Rebecca said. "It was the hardest thing I ever wrote. I must have started that letter 10 different times before I finally finished it. You asked me to let you go, to wish you well, to find happiness, and you never responded," Rebecca said, and now there were tears in her eyes. "You never called, never wrote back, never even sent a text message. You just disappeared from my life completely." Michael felt shame wash over him. "I didn't know what to say. Part of me was relieved that you'd been the one to end it, so I didn't have to. But part of me was furious. I felt like you'd chosen your career over us, over me. And I felt like you'd chosen your family over us," Rebecca shot back. "Like I didn't matter as much as your responsibilities to them. That's not true." Michael protested. "You mattered. You mattered so much that it hurt too badly to respond to your letter. I thought a clean break was better, less painful in the long run." Rebecca laughed bitterly. "Less painful? Michael, I waited 3 weeks for you to respond. Every day I checked my phone, checked my email, even checked my mailbox hoping for a letter back. And nothing. You just vanished from my life like our 4 years together meant nothing. They meant everything," Michael said, his voice rough with emotion. "That's why I couldn't respond. I was 24 years old, drowning in family responsibilities, watching my dad struggle to recover. And the woman I loved was 3,000 miles away moving on with her life. If I'd written back, if I'd stayed in contact, I would have fallen apart. So you chose silence instead," Rebecca said. "I chose survival," Michael replied. "Maybe that was selfish. Maybe I should have handled it better. But I was doing the best I could at the time." They sat in heavy silence. The bar had filled up a bit more now, other conference attendees trickling in after the evening events. But Michael and Rebecca were lost in their own world, in memories that were 15 years old but felt as fresh as yesterday. "I looked you up once," Michael admitted. "About 5 years after we broke up, I found your professional profile online. Saw that you'd finished medical school, that you were practicing in Boston. I saw your photo, and I just stared at it for probably an hour." Rebecca's expression softened. "I looked you up too. More than once, actually. I saw you got promoted, saw you were still in Seattle. I wondered if you ever thought about me every day for the first 5 years." Michael said honestly. "Less often after that, but yes, I thought about you." The second round of drinks arrived, and both Michael and Rebecca took long sips before continuing. The alcohol was starting to loosen the tight grip they'd both been keeping on their emotions. "So what happened after?" Michael asked. "After you went to Baltimore?" Rebecca shrugged. "I threw myself into medical school, studied harder than anyone else, volunteered for extra shifts at the hospital, basically buried myself in work so I wouldn't have time to think about you, about us, about what I'd lost. Did it work?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then I'd see a couple walking hand in hand, or I'd hear a song we used to like, or I'd pass an Italian restaurant, and it would all come flooding back. For the first year, I probably cried myself to sleep twice a week." Michael felt his chest tighten. He caused that pain. His silence, his inability to deal with the situation maturely, had hurt her. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I really am. I handled everything so badly. We both did," she said. "I could have fought harder to keep you in my life. I could have called you instead of just writing that letter. I could have been more understanding about your family situation, instead of seeing it as competition for your attention." "Your letter said you were going to find happiness," Michael said. "Did you? Did you find it?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "I became a neurologist. I specialized in stroke treatment. I've helped hundreds of patients recover from brain injuries. I've published research papers, taught medical students, built a career I'm proud of. So yes, I found professional fulfillment. As for personal happiness, that's more complicated." "How so?" "I got married," Rebecca said, watching Michael's face carefully. 7 years ago. His name was Daniel. He was a surgeon at the same hospital where I worked. The past tense wasn't lost on Michael. We got divorced 2 years ago, Rebecca explained. No big drama, no cheating or fighting. We just realized we build a life based on convenience and common interests rather than real love. We were both married to our careers first and each other second. It wasn't enough. Michael processed this information. He felt a strange mix of sadness for her pain, and something else he didn't want to examine too closely. I'm sorry it didn't work out, are you? Rebecca asked with a slight smile. Really? Michael had the decency to look embarrassed. Okay, maybe I'm not entirely sorry. Is that terrible of me? Probably, Rebecca said, but she was smiling now, a real smile. But I'll admit I'm glad to hear you never married. That would have been harder to hear somehow. I dated, Michael said. Nothing serious. A few relationships that lasted a few months, but nothing that felt right. I told myself I was too busy with work to focus on taking care of my dad and helping my mom. But the truth is, I was comparing everyone to you. Nobody measured up. Rebecca looked at him intently. That's a heavy thing to say, Michael. It's the truth, though. You asked me if I remembered that night. Well, I remember everything about you. The way you laughed at terrible jokes. How you always ordered the same thing at Marino's but pretended to look at the menu anyway. The way you'd bite your bottom lip when you were concentrating. I remember all of it, and I never found anyone who made me feel the way you did. Past tense? Rebecca asked quietly. Michael met her eyes. I don't know. Is it past tense? Right now, sitting here with you, it doesn't feel like the past. It feels immediate and real and confusing. Rebecca nodded slowly. I know what you mean. When I saw you tonight, 15 years just disappeared. All the anger and hurt I thought I'd processed came rushing back, but so did everything else. The good memories, the feelings, all of it. Why did you come over to me? Michael asked. You could have just avoided me all night. We could have pretended we didn't see each other. Because I'm 40 years old now, Rebecca said. I'm divorced, living alone in Boston. Successful in my career, but sometimes wondering what it's all for. And when I saw you, I realized I've been carrying around this weight for 15 years. The weight of things unsaid, questions unasked, closure never achieved. I didn't want to carry it anymore. So asking me if I remembered that night was your way of starting this conversation? It was my way of seeing if you'd been carrying the same weight, Rebecca explained. If you'd said no, if you'd acted like our relationship was just some minor thing from your past, then I would have known to let it go. But you remembered, Michael. I could see it in your face immediately. You've been carrying it too. Michael laughed without humor, like a backpack full of rocks. Some days heavier than others, but always there. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the conversation. The bar was getting crowded now, loud voices and laughter surrounding them. But in their corner, it felt like they were in their own private world. Can I ask you something? Rebecca said, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay, do you resent me? For going to Baltimore, for choosing medical school, for writing that letter. Deep down, after all these years, do you resent me for it? Michael thought carefully before answering. I did. For a long time, I did. I resented you for not understanding what I was dealing with, for not offering to defer your admission, for not fighting harder to make us work. But over the years, as I watched my dad struggle and eventually pass away, as I built my own career, I started to understand something. What? That you were 23 years old with an incredible opportunity in front of you, and I was asking you to give it up or postpone it for a relationship that might not have survived anyway. Rebecca's eyes widened. You really believe that? That we might not have survived anyway? Michael nodded slowly. Think about it. If you'd stayed in Seattle or I'd moved to Baltimore, one of us would have given up a huge opportunity. And maybe for a while, we would have been okay. But eventually, wouldn't that resentment have built up? Wouldn't the person who sacrificed their dream have started to wonder what if? I've thought about that too, Rebecca admitted. In my marriage to Daniel, I saw what happens when two people try to force a relationship that isn't quite right. We stayed together out of stubbornness and convenience. Not because we were truly meant for each other. And I've wondered if that's what would have happened to us. So maybe that night, as painful as it was, saved us from something worse, Michael suggested. Maybe it saved us from slowly destroying what we had through resentment and regret. Rebecca was quiet, considering this. That's a mature way of looking at it. Very different from the angry 23-year-olds we were back then. 15 years will do that. Michael said with a small smile. I've learned a lot. My dad's death 3 years ago taught me that life is short and unpredictable. You can't control everything. Sometimes the universe has other plans, and you just have to accept that. I'm sorry about your father, Rebecca said softly. I know how much you loved him. How is your mom doing? She's okay. She moved to Arizona to be closer to my sister, who got married and has 2 kids now. Mom loves being a grandmother. It's given her a new purpose after Dad passed. That's good. I'm glad she has that. Rebecca paused. My parents ask about you sometimes, you know, even after all these years. They really liked you. Michael felt touched by this. I like them too. Your dad's terrible golf stories. Your mom's amazing cooking. They made me feel like part of the family. They were devastated when we broke up, Rebecca said. My mom cried almost as much as I did. She kept saying we were meant to be together. Were we? Michael asked. Meant to be together? Or were we just 2 kids who fell in love at the wrong time? Rebecca thought about this for a long moment. The bar was getting even more crowded now, people pressing in around them. But neither of them suggested moving. This corner table had become their safe space, their confessional. I think we were real. Rebecca finally said. What we had was real love, not just kid stuff. But I also think timing matters. And our timing was terrible. We were both at a point in our lives where we needed to focus on building our careers, on becoming the people we were meant to be. And maybe we couldn't do that together. So what you're saying is, we made the right choice? Even though it hurt like crazy? I'm saying maybe there wasn't a right choice, Rebecca replied. Just different paths, each with their own costs and benefits. You stayed in Seattle, helped your family, build a successful career. I went to Baltimore, became a doctor, achieved my dream. We both lost each other, but we both gained something too. Michael felt something shift inside him. For 15 years, he viewed that night as a tragedy, as the moment everything went wrong. But maybe Rebecca was right. Maybe it was just life happening, forcing them to make difficult choices with no perfect solution. You know what's strange? Michael said. I've spent 15 years imagining what I'd say if I ever saw you again. I had whole speeches prepared in my head. Apologies, explanations, accusations, everything. But now that we're actually here talking, none of that seems important anymore. What seems important? Rebecca asked. This conversation. Finally being honest with each other about what happened and how we felt. Finally letting go of the anger and the what-ifs. Rebecca smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. When did you get so wise, Michael Chen? Somewhere between 40 and 42, he joked, making her laugh. It was the first genuine laugh he heard from her all night, and the sound made his heart ache in a bittersweet way. The bartender announced last call, startling them both. They'd been talking for hours, completely losing track of time. The bar was starting to empty out now, conference attendees heading back to their rooms. Rebecca checked her phone. I have to be at the airport in a few hours. Red-eye flight back to Boston, and I fly back to Seattle this afternoon, Michael said. They stood up slowly, neither quite ready to end this moment. They'd torn open old wounds tonight, but somehow it felt like healing rather than harm. They'd said things that needed saying, asked questions that needed answering, and found a kind of peace neither had expected. Rebecca pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Michael. Just in case you ever need a neurologist, she said with a wry smile. Or just in case you want to talk about old Italian restaurants and terrible timing. Michael took the card, running his thumb over the embossed letters. Dr. Rebecca Mitchell. Neurology. He knew he probably wouldn't call. They both knew it, but having the option felt important somehow. A door left slightly open rather than slammed shut. Thank you, he said, for walking up to me tonight, for asking if I remembered, for being brave enough to have this conversation. "Thank you for staying," Rebecca replied. "For not running away. For being honest." They looked at each other, and in that moment, they both understood something important. They would always love each other in some way. First loves leave permanent marks, shape who we become, teach us lessons we carry forever. But loving someone doesn't always mean being with them. Sometimes love means letting go, wishing them well, and finding your own path forward. Rebecca stepped forward and hugged him. Michael held her close, memorizing the feeling one last time. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes, but they were smiling too.